Cheney wanted information that linked Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein.
But they weren't getting that information from the CIA. And so he put pressure, I think, on Rumsfeld and on the Pentagon to come up with their own estimates.
I remember vividly in the driveway outside of the West Wing, Scooter Libby grabbing me from the Vice President's office and saying, "I hear you don't believe this report that Mohammed Atta was talking to Iraqi people in Prague." And I said, "I don't believe it because it's not true." And he said, "You're wrong. You know you're wrong. Go back and find out. Look at the rest of the reports and find out that you're wrong." And I understood what he was saying, which was, this is a report that we want to believe, and stop saying it's not true. It's a real problem for the Vice President's office that you, the counterterrorism coordinator, are walking around saying that this isn't a true report. Shut up. That's what I was being told.
The Vice President continued to assert a connection between al-Qaeda and Iraq, but the CIA kept saying it wasn't true.
We said in that time frame that we had no evidence linking Iraq to al-Qaeda and to those attacks.
It's to judge between different pieces of information. There is what you could call intelligence information available to prove almost any case that you wanted to prove. If you were a non-discerning intelligence amateur.
The INC constantly shoving crap at us. You know, they were providing information that they thought that we wanted to hear. They were feeding the beast.
This was part of a broad campaign to pollute the U.S. policy process by feeding it false information, but information that would basically confirm fears already held, conceptions already held by the administration that Saddam Hussein was an imminent danger and had to be dealt with.
The Vice President and his Chief of Staff, Scooter Libby, had made about 10 trips to CIA headquarters, where they personally questioned analysts.
I was at the CIA for 24 years. The only time a vice president came to the CIA building was for a ceremony, to cut a ribbon, to stand on the stage, but not to harangue analysts about finished intelligence.
Many of them have told me they were pressured. And there are a lot of ways, pressure takes a lot of forms.
The questions every morning, the tasks, the requests to look into this angle one more time, turn over that rock again. If you didn't find anything last week, look again, see if there's something there for that, about that connection.
So you start looking very hard for anything at all that will support that answer that the Vice President wants, that the Defense Department wants.
Intelligence analysts listen to speeches and read newspapers too, and they can see what the senior policymakers are saying publicly, and they can make their own judgments about, well, does this really conform or does it not conform with what our analytic judgments are? And there was a clear tension.
There were a number of other headlines based on faulty information that Judy Miller would write.
Politicization, real politicization, rarely works that way. That is to say, blatant, crude arm twisting. It's always far more subtle.
The CIA's assessment was sheep-herded by a national intelligence officer who works very closely with the Vice President's office. It's a flawed, fatally flawed document, and it should never have seen the light of day.
It was clearly requested and published for policy advocacy purposes. This was not informing a decision. What was the purpose of it? The purpose was to strengthen the case for going to war with the American public. Is it proper for the intelligence community to publish papers with that purpose? I don't think so. And I regret having had a role in that.
Paul Pillar is a man that I have tremendous respect for, and who I think is a ideal intelligence officer. If there was pressures that resulted in Mr. Pillar not being happy with what he finally authored, I can only imagine those pressures must have been extraordinary, because he is a man that I would want my son to model himself after. So that to me, that says the pressure from the White House through Mr. Tennant on professional CIA officers was nearly overwhelming.
at the United Nations.
Powell gets a speech written by Scooter Libby, sent to him, and he's told, this is the kind of speech we would like you to give at the UN. It's very strange for the Vice President's senior advisor to be writing the speech and saying to the Secretary of State, this is what you should be saying.
When he was going over the data, he was told this was based on not one source, but multiple sources. One of the sources he was told it was based on was already known to be a fabricator. What said to me is, these guys really don't want the message. The message wasn't, there are no weapons there. The message was, our system completely broke down and failed. It gave not only the wrong answer, it mishandled every piece of evidence that we had.